Hello and welcome to Your Hometown Solutions. I'm your host, Jean Newell with Waterview Realty, and in the house with me tonight and today morning, whenever you're listening to the show, is Jonathan Lack, and he's with Lack & Lack Chartered, which is a real estate attorney law office, attorneys at law. I'll get that out. Also, he's the owner of Waterview Title Services, as well as the broker of Waterview Realty, and he's my co-host with the most.
Well, I thank you for having me back.
And we always have lots to talk about as far as real estate and other things. We're going to have a wonderful guest with us in a few moments, but we'll keep it as a surprise. But Jonathan, let's talk a little bit about real estate and what's happening in the market. It is going full force.
Yes, we're finally seeing an increase in sales, which of course results in a decrease in inventory. So if you're looking to purchase a property, you're going to have to look a little bit.
Exactly. We were just looking at some of the statistics that have happened this summer because we were saying, gosh, the summer seemed to be so slow. We didn't have a lot of people out there milling around and going to open houses. But we looked at the stats and it was way down for August. But boy, has it picked up.
Yes, absolutely.
The phones are ringing. Things are moving. In fact, you almost can't find, if you're looking for something and you find it, don't dilly-dally, as they used to say, because things are moving to the point where they're only on the market a day or two, and they're gone.
Yeah, I'm recommending to a lot of clients that if they're really interested in a property, but they want to think about it, maybe put an offer in. There are contingencies. You can get out of offers even after you put them in, but if you don't put the offer in and the seller accepts somebody else, then you've lost out on that opportunity.
Exactly. It's sort of like these tickets that they put up for sale on a Ticketmaster, and they're, some big star coming in, and they're gone in a day because people don't have the opportunity to wait in line or anything. You have to jump when we yell jump. You have to jump, right? It's crazy market out there because we don't have any inventory, as Jonathan said, and as a matter of fact, I just did a search for a client last week, and for those of you that aren't familiar with Brevard County, it's about a 15-mile stretch from 192 all the way down the Sebastian Inlet on A1A, and that's about a 15-mile radius at least. And out of 15 miles, now you would think in Broward County or Dade County how many hundreds of houses would be for sale. But the one nice thing about Melbourne Beach, where I'm referring to, is it's still a nice open spaces. It's not completely built out, so we don't have thousands and thousands of people living in a mile stretch like you do in South Florida. So that's something that one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of inventory. There's not a lot of homes that are for sale percentage-wise. But anyway, I did this search, and I'll ask you, Jonathan, I made a $300,000 as my maximum. And the stretch was, again, from 192 all the way down the Sebastian Inlet. And I didn't care if it was condos, houses, what it was. How many do you think showed up out of under 300,000?
Well, under 300,000 to get onto the beach side is a marginal number, but I would still expect with that distance that you'd probably have 40 or 50 homes.
You would think so. In fact, last year, I bet we probably did have closer to 40 or 50 because our inventory is getting less and the prices are going up. So a lot of people say, I want to stay under 300,000. I had 16 listings come up, and 7 of them were trailers. So there is very little inventory out there. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the prices are getting driven up like back in 2004 and 5, where you couldn't even get through the home without somebody making multiple offers. But it does mean it's kind of a buyer's and a seller's market. It's kind of a strange phenomenon.
Yeah, we have the case where the interest rates are still low, and therefore it is a great opportunity for buyers to be able to get into a property for generally less than it would cost them to rent a property. So it is a very good time to buy, but as a result of that, the supply and demand, you've got sellers out there who now see the opportunity to sell their homes more quickly to these interested parties before undoubtedly interest rates will eventually start creeping up.
Well, this is, we're in autumn right now and in October, and we see a lot of homes that'll be coming up for sale maybe December and January. I always say the best time to purchase a home, if you can, is in that summer months, early fall, because those are people usually that need to sell, have to sell. But come January or February, that's when people test the market. They put homes up for sale, see how much they can get because they've got that northern buyer coming down that still thinks we're the best price county in Florida, which we are, but their real estate dollar really goes a long way. So they don't quibble if the price is raised $20,000 or $30,000 from November to January, they pay it. So it's always good to start looking for homes on the off season. So same thing when you're when you're buying an air conditioner, the best time to buy it is in the winter months because that's when they're on sale. You buy a pool in the winter months, and the same thing with the home. You have to find that sweet spot for the season. So that's kind of what's happening in real estate. And one of the things that we're seeing happening is we see a lot of investors right now because real estate is on the incline, and we always see a lot of flippers coming out of the woodwork and people telling you how to flip homes and people buying homes and turning them in a very rapid time frame. And we have an expert on the show with us today, Jonathan, that knows all about flipping houses. So
without further ado.
Thank you. I can't get that out. Without further ado, thank you very much. And the applause starts now. We have Lisa Pelc with Bella Casa Design. And she has an interesting story. Lisa, you are, and I always call it Flippin' Zombies, but that's not the name of your show. You tell us the name of your show that's on A&E and some of the other stations nationwide.
Hi, Jean. Thank you for having me. Yes, the name of the show is called Zombie House Flipping, which is a very odd name. And I think part of the reason they named it that is because it's a very trendy, off the cuff. It makes your eyebrows go up and wonder, what is this zombie house flipping? And it's interesting. And I did a little bit of research about the name. And apparently some people call houses that are distressed in ruining neighborhoods zombies.
And
that's
a California term or something, isn't it?
And probably because the production studio that has created this show is from California. It's Pilgrim Studios, which they own A&E, and it's also on the FYI channel. And the show is based in Orlando, Florida. They partnered with some investors, 2 investors and 2 realtors, but they're all a team on the show. And they go out, they look for these zombies, and they flip them, they improve them. And then our company, Bella Casa Staging and Redesign, comes in and makes them beautiful after all the improvements are done.
You're that when they have that before picture, and then you're the after picture. That's always exciting.
Yeah, that's the part everybody fast forwards to.
Yeah. We like that.
What's this going to look like?
Yeah.
Well, we always say our show, although it's a radio show, it's kind of a takeoff on a lot of the HGTV types of shows because we want to educate the listener on all the different things they can do regarding real estate, whether it's designing the house, staging your home, selling your home, buying a home, all the different avenues, just like the HGTV shows. In fact, on HGTV, I know that's not your show network, but just as a point, they have at least 11 flipping shows. So that tells you that people are really interested in seeing that before and after and what you can do to a house. Sometimes you can flip your own house. And
some of them need to be flipped. The ones that I walk into that they need help selling.
I do want to interject here just for our listeners who hopefully everybody understands what we're talking about with flipping. But I've spent the last 10 years, I'm going to say unfortunately, though it's been fortunate for my practice, to represent distressed property owners. And a lot of what I do is distressed property owner representation, helping people who are in unfortunate circumstances wherein they necessarily either need loan modifications or short sales or things like that. And the zombie houses are those folks who ultimately, often through misunderstanding, not realizing they could negotiate with their bank or not realizing that there were alternatives, just said, I can't afford my home anymore. I got a notice of foreclosure, and they just pick up and leave. So what happens is a house gets left abandoned, and ultimately someone comes in and buys it, typically from the bank or through a foreclosure. But that process over the last 10 years, now it has picked up, thankfully, as far as the time frame. But there had been houses that would sit 2, 3, 4 years. And so you'd have a house that's been neglected, and thus the name zombie. You have these houses that the grass is overgrown, the shutters are falling off, all sort, they're zombies. And so that's where that comes from. The flipping side of it, what flipping is when somebody buys the house, typically in a distressed situation, then they go in there and use the services of Bella Casa Staging and Redesign and get the property cleaned up, nicened up, looking good, and then they sell it, obviously, hopefully for a profit after their expenses of improving the property. So flipping is the idea of buying a property, again, typically distressed, but buying it at a lower price, improving it, and then selling it at a higher price.
Well, and also I want to put a little plug in here about your services, because Lack and Lack Chartered Attorneys at Law, that's what you specialize in, those unusual situations that maybe aren't ready for a real estate agent to maybe list the property or try to sell it. Maybe it's in a foreclosure, maybe it's in a probate. There's some scenario that they need legal advice first before they even talk about selling their property. So give out your information on how they could contact you first, just to find out, maybe I just need some advice from a real estate attorney before I get involved in bringing in a real estate agent to sell my home. Maybe I'm just not set up to do that just yet.
Right. Well, thank you, Jean. I'd like to think of myself as sort of a real estate advisor. So I am a real estate attorney. I'm a Florida bar licensed attorney, and I can be reached through Lack and Lack Chartered at area code 321-953-5115 or on the internet at www.lacklaw.com. That's LACKLAW.com. But what I like to think of is when you call me, I can assist you with legal advice, but also transactional advice. I am also a real estate broker with Waterview Realty Services, as you know, since you're one of my fine agents. And I believe we can advise people. Sometimes selling the property is the right way to go. Sometimes there's other alternatives. Sometimes there's things like engaging Lisa Pelc to improve the property before we sell it. So there's a lot of different avenues of advice that I'd like to give. And it starts with the law office, but it can extend through the title company and real estate company as well.
Exactly. And there's so many different things, avenues out there involved in real estate that even 20, 30 years ago, if you haven't bought or sold a piece of property in a long time, there are so many new things to know about real estate that is very technical. And part of it is your competition and marketing. And we're going to talk to Lisa about that as well. But I'm really interested in and I know the listeners are as well, how you got the job on a national television show, being here on the Space Coast. You have a great company, but how did they find you?
So the production company was asking the cast in Orlando about professional stagers in Orlando or the surrounding areas. And they found me online. So the cast, Ashley and Keith and Peter Duke, and Justin, they found me online and referred me to the production people in LA. And they literally just called me
I love this story.
Out of the blue. And I remember it like how we remember very significant things that go on in the world. This was a pretty significant moment in my world. I was on the couch and it was 7:30 p.m. and I was watching TV with my son, and I get this phone call from California, and I thought, who's calling me at 7:30, from California? I answered it, and it was the company, and they told me who they were. At the time, they didn't have the name of the show. They just said, would you be interested in staging homes for this show that we're going to be doing? It's going to be, we're going to be flipping the homes, and then we want to stage them afterwards. And I just kind of paused for a minute thinking, is this real? Is this a joke? I'm getting punked. They call it, where you're like, oh, the joke's on you. Well, I'm a big research person. So I go and I look, and I had never heard of Pilgrim Studios because we don't hear about that. We hear about A&E and FYI, the channels. Anyhow, it was legit. And I said, absolutely. And we were going to start out doing a couple of homes to see how it went. And they had another staging company in alignment. And after we did the first 2, they said, well, will you just do all of them, all 8 episodes? And I said, absolutely, yes, we will.
Yeah.
So
Nope, sorry, not interested.
Yeah. So it was so much fun. It was just, it was the path to being in the stardom. And, we'll see how it goes with, the referrals from the show, people who see it. And I've gotten calls on silly things you would think about.